We live in interesting times.
For the headlines.
A team of U.S. military personnel and British divers joined rescue efforts at a flooded cave in northern Thailand, where 12 children and their football coach have been trapped for 5 days as heavy overnight rains hamper their search.
President Donald Trump secures a historic chance to shift the U.S. Supreme Court decisively to the right as Justice Anthony Kennedy, the tie-breaking vote between the benched liberal and conservative judges, announces he is to retire.
The date and location of a summit between U.S. President Trump and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin will be announced. Trump's National Security Advisor John Bolton visited Moscow to meet President Putin and discuss the details of the encounter between the two leaders, set to take place in a third country. Mama Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
We welcome our viewers here in the Philippines and around the world. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sam Cepeda.
And now to the news. Navy divers, soldiers, and police descended on the cave where the young football team and their coach have been stuck since Saturday. The desperate search for 12 children and their football coach trapped in a flooded cave in northern Thailand presses into its 5th night. Take a look. The U.S. military will send special operations team as heavy rainfall prevented the Thai divers from reaching far into the cave. Muddy water rising to the ceiling of one of the chambers has prevented Navy divers from progressing further into the cave to where they think the 12 boys and their coach, who went missing on Saturday, might be sheltering. There has been no contact with the group since they entered the Tam Luang Nang Non cave in Chiang Rai province. The children, aged between 11 and 16, went into the cave Saturday and were trapped when heavy rains clogged the main entrance. Around 1,000 Navy SEAL divers, police soldiers, border guards, and officials have been mobilized for a round-the-clock rescue. The harrowing search has captivated Thailand, where local media is blanketed with coverage of the boys. The complex cave is infamous for being a tough site for skilled divers because of its complicated network of tunnels and pools.
Russian President Vladimir Putin on Wednesday has signed an order to send his country's first designated defense attaché to the Philippines, the Russian embassy in Manila announced Thursday. The move, according to the embassy, signals Moscow's determination to strengthen military and technical cooperation with Manila. According to Natalia Naumova, press attaché at the embassy, no specific person was designated yet. The Russian leader's order comes more than a month after the Philippines sent its first defense attaché to Moscow. As per an earlier post by Philippine ambassador to Russia, Carlos Soreta, Colonel Dennis Pastor was with his administrative assistant, Technical Sergeant Pablito Igne, when he reported for duty in May 2018 as head of the Office of Defense Attaché in the Philippine Embassy. He described the sending of a Philippine defense attaché to Russia as the first time in over 40 years of relations between the two states. Meanwhile, defense cooperation between Moscow and Manila developed further after the signing of the Agreement on Defense Cooperation and the Agreement on Military Technical Cooperation in 2017.
In other news, President Xi Jinping said China is committed to peace but it will not give up even 1 inch of territory. This, he said, after talks with visiting U.S. Defense Secretary James Mattis. Mr. Xi added that China had peaceful intentions, but he reasserted his view that there would be no concessions from China about what it considers to be Chinese territory. We cannot lose even 1 inch of the territory left behind by our ancestors, according to President Xi. Mattis came to China amid an escalating war of words over the South China Sea, rising Chinese pressure on U.S. ally Taiwan, and China's long-term ambition to challenge U.S. power across the Indo-Pacific region. After Beijing installed missile batteries and landed long-range bombers on some of the reclaimed South China Sea outposts, Mattis publicly accused President Xi of reneging on his pledge against militarizing the region, and the Pentagon disinvited Chinese forces from participating in a Pacific Rim exercise. Now, going into the visit, though, Mattis toned down his comments, saying he mainly wanted to take the pulse of China's military strategy.
I think right now we're at a point where we have to look at how do we use our military-to-military engagements and our actions in order to promote trust between our two militaries, trust between our two countries.
Now, both sides also avoided digging into the ongoing trade tensions, focusing instead on smaller areas where security forces might build a rapport over time, helping to avoid conflict.
U.S. Defense Secretary James Mattis told South Korea that their alliance remained ironclad. Mattis is reassuring key East Asian allies following President Trump's unilateral suspension of military exercises with Seoul. Mattis told his counterpart in Seoul the U.S. commitment to the Republic of Korea remains ironclad, adding that included maintaining the current U.S. force levels on the Korean peninsula. Mattis was flying to Tokyo later Thursday night for a day of meetings with senior Japanese officials. In both Japan and South Korea, which are within reach of the North's proven short and medium-range ballistic missiles, concern has been expressed that Washington could agree a deal that removed the threat against the U.S. mainland, such as the North giving up its ICBMs while leaving them squarely in Pyongyang's firing line.
In other news, North and South Korea will field joint teams in 3 sports: canoeing, rowing, and women's basketball at the Asian Games, according to organizers, in the latest sign of thawing tensions. The 2 countries will also march together at the opening and closing ceremonies for the showpiece event being held in Indonesia from August 18 to September 2. Seoul and Pyongyang agreed this month to form unified teams for some sports, though the specifics were only confirmed Thursday after a meeting in Jakarta between the Olympic Council of Asia, or OCA, Games organizers, and representatives from the 2 Koreas. The athletes from the Koreas will march under a neutral Korean peninsula flag and under the Korean name. Further details about logistics will come later. Ties between the neighbors have been warming since the Winter Olympics, with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and South Korean President Moon Jae-in agreeing at an historic summit in April to jointly participate in international sports events. This month, Kim and U.S. President Donald Trump held a summit in Singapore.
A small plane crashed into a construction site in a densely populated part of India's financial capital, Mumbai, on Thursday, killing 5 people, including 1 on the ground. There were 4 people on the 12-seater aircraft, disaster management officials said, with witnesses reporting hearing a loud blast as it smashed into a half-built structure. A woman who was also not named reported hearing 3 loud explosions and described seeing a major fire. India's Directorate General of Civil Aviation said the plane was a turboprop King Air C-90 and had been on a test flight from the nearby Juhu airstrip. Authorities said it was sending a team to investigate the cause, adding that the aircraft was owned by a private operator who had purchased it from the Uttar Pradesh state government.
The news continues here on Eagle News International. Stay with us. Health is
Monday to Friday, 2 to 2:30 p.m.
Welcome back. Supreme Court Justice Anthony Kennedy, who has often cast the breaking vote between the top U.S. courts, liberal and conservative judges, on Wednesday, U.S. time, announced his intention to retire. Kennedy's departure at the end of July will give President Trump the chance to appoint a more staunchly conservative judge to the 9-seat bench, potentially spelling a historic swing to the right for the court, which exerts a deep and far-ranging influence on U.S. life. It has been the greatest honor and privilege to serve our nation in the federal judiciary for 43 years, 30 of those on the Supreme Court, Kennedy was quoted as saying in a statement announcing his decision. Nominated by President Ronald Reagan, the 81-year-old Kennedy took his oath in the office in 1988. He said his decision to step aside was based on his deep desire to spend more time with his family. President Trump paid tribute to Kennedy as a great justice of the Supreme Court.
A man I also have great respect for, Justice Anthony. You know who I'm talking about. Justice Kennedy will be retiring, and he's a man that I've known for a long time and a man that I've respected for a long time. He's been a great justice of the Supreme Court. He is a man who is displaying great vision. He's displayed tremendous vision and tremendous heart, and he will be missed, but he will be retiring, and we will begin our search for a new justice of the United States Supreme Court that will begin immediately, and hopefully we're going to pick somebody who will be as outstanding.
Kennedy 81 will depart effective July 31, according to a court statement. Kennedy's decision to step down offers conservatives the opportunity they have long sought to lock in a reliable 5-member majority on the High Court. Kennedy has, since at least 2005, been the swing vote on many of the court's most ideologically charged decisions. And for them, it comes at an ideal time, since Republicans control the Senate and have voted in unison to confirm most of President Trump's conservative court nominees. With 5 solid conservatives, the justices could repeal the right to abortion, expand protections for gun owners, narrow gay rights, and strengthen the president's power to arrest and deport immigrants who are in the U.S. illegally.
German Chancellor Angela Merkel warns that the migration challenge would or could determine Europe's fate, hours ahead of a Brussels summit with EU leaders expected to clash over the way forward.
Europa hat viele Herausforderungen, aber die der Migration könnte zu einer Schicksalsfrage für die Europäische Union werden.
That's why the stakes are high, said the German leader, who is also battling a domestic rebellion over her decision in 2015 to open Germany's borders to asylum seekers fleeing war and misery in Syria, Iraq, and elsewhere. If a deal cannot be reached between all 28 of the bloc, Merkel said that a compromise must be found among a coalition of the willing. The stakes for Merkel are particularly high as her Interior Minister, Horst Seehofer, has given her an ultimatum to find a solution at Thursday and Friday's summit to curb new arrivals, failing which he would defy her and turn away migrants at the border. If Seehofer carries through with his threat, it could spell the end of Merkel's coalition within his CSU party.
All right, U.S. Advisor John Bolton was received in Moscow with top honors, a lunch hosted by Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, followed by a markedly courteous meeting with President Putin at the Kremlin. Now, U.S.-Russian relations have been strained by disagreement over the Syrian conflict, Russia's annexation of Crimea, its involvement in eastern Ukraine, and allegations of political meddling. The Kremlin's top foreign policy aide said President Putin and Bolton agreed that the two presidents, President Trump and President Putin, will meet at a place and time to be announced.
Ваш приезд в Москву вселяет в нас надежду на то, что мы можем сделать первые хотя бы шаги к восстановлению полноформатных отношений между нашими государствами. Ваш приезд в Москву вселяет в нас надежду на то, что мы можем сделать первые хотя бы шаги к восстановлению полноформатных отношений между нашими государствами.
Bolton, known for his hawkish reputation and tough stance on Moscow, said it was important to keep talking and complimented President Putin on his handling of the Football World Cup currently taking place in Russia.
Even in earlier days when our countries had differences, our leaders and their advisors met, and I think that was good for both countries, good for stability in the world, and President Trump feels very strongly on that subject. So again, we're most appreciative of your courtesy and graciousness here, and I look forward to learning how you've handled the World Cup so successfully, among other things.
Now, we have an update on this, but let me say this for a while. U.S. President Donald Trump and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin will now hold a summit in the Finnish capital Helsinki next month. They will meet on July 16 and discuss relations between the two countries and a range of national security issues. This is according to the White House. The summit was announced on Wednesday after U.S. National Security Advisor John Bolton and President Putin met in Moscow. The two leaders last met in November in Vietnam at an Asia-Pacific summit. Speaking earlier about the summit, Mr. Trump said he would discuss the war in Syria and the situation in Ukraine with his Russian counterpart. After meeting Mr. Putin, Mr. Bolton told reporters that his visit had been at the request of President Trump, who wanted to explore the possibility of a meeting. Now, both leaders wanted to use the summit to improve relations between their countries.
Well, I think a lot of people have said or implied over time that a meeting between President Trump and President Putin would somehow prove some nexus between the Trump campaign and the Kremlin, which is complete nonsense. What must guide his conduct of American foreign policy is the pursuit of American national interest. And he judges correctly, in my view, that this bilateral summit between himself and President Putin is something that he needs to do and will do regardless of political criticism at home.
Malacanang admitted that the government needs to work harder to promote the numerous benefits Filipinos can enjoy under a proposed federal form of government. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque made this comment following latest social weather station survey, which showed majority the Filipinos are unaware of federalism. According to SWS survey conducted on March 25, only 1 of the 4 Filipinos are aware of the proposal to shift the form of government to federal system.
Everyone in government should exert more effort in popularizing, number one, the need to shift to a federal form of government, its advantages to the people, and its effect on the everyday lives of the common people.
The lone female in President Rodrigo R. Duterte's consultative committee to review the 1987 Constitution said Thursday that a little more effort is needed to explain to the public the benefits a shift to federalism would bring to the country.
The reactions at the beginning of a Q&A, or at least even while they're listening to the presentations, is slightly skeptical. But at the end of the forum, it usually comes out to this, ganun pala naman eh. Pwede pala yun. So it's like an enlightenment for all of them.
At the end of the day, they always move for the support to federalism.
CONCOM Senior Technical Assistant and Spokesperson Ding Generoso meanwhile expressed confidence that those who are still undecided about federalism would change their minds. To further educate the public on federalism, Generoso also said that aside from holding regional consultations and press conferences, the CONCOM is also crafting a nationwide information education program that will involve not only the mass media, but the internet and social media.
We're selling the idea of a new system of government where you give the power to the people and the power to the regions. No? Reduce the power and hold of the central government over the lives of citizens and over the lives of their governments in their locality so that they can have a little more freedom and power to determine their future.
To other news now, Malaysian state prosecutor says the assassination of the estranged half-brother of North Korea's leader was not a prank, and insisting it was a carefully planned and executed murder using an UN-banned poison.
I would say it's very fruitful, and again, it is clear we have better evidence.
Prosecutors dismissed the defense case that the two women defendants were recruited to take part in what they thought were prank TV shows, but were instead tricked into becoming inadvertent assassins in an elaborate plot by a group of North Korean agents. Indonesian city Asia and Vietnamese Doan Thi Vuong are accused of killing Kim JongNam by smearing the toxic nerve agent VX on his face at Kuala Lumpur airport last year in a Cold War-style hit that shocked the world. VX is so deadly that it's classified as a weapon of mass destruction by the United Nations. Kim died within minutes.
There is no evidence of political plot. There is no evidence of criminal conspiracy. What is more important, a person died, and then we have proven that there's a 2% that caused the death. There's nothing. The 4 North Korean who ran away didn't apply the VX or the poisonous substance to the victim. 15. The crucial time is the act of attacking Kim JongNam and the act of washing. If we watch the DVD properly, it doesn't jive with prank.
South Korea accused the North of masterminding the killing of Kim, who had been living in exile after falling out of favor with the ruling family in Pyongyang. The assassination also sparked a row between North Korea and Malaysia, which had historically been one of Pyongyang's few allies. However, ties appear to be improving, with the new Malaysian government announcing plans to reopen its embassy in Pyongyang as tension on the Korean peninsula ease.
There is no evidence whatsoever there is a conspiracy by the North Korean or even the president of North Korea. There is no evidence.
A fire at Nairobi's Gikomba market killed 15 people on Thursday in the latest such incident to hit the Kenyan capital's largest open-air market. Hospital officials said there were 4 children among the dead. However, the cause of the current fire is not known. The pre-dawn blaze left over 70 people injured and destroyed many of the market's wood and tarp stalls. It's a well-known market for second-hand clothes, shoes, and vegetables. A police officer at the scene said emergency services continue to search the area. Witnesses heard explosions as gas canisters were swept up in the inferno. 9 of the dead were in an apartment block next to the market, while 6 others, including 4 children, died of their injuries in the hospital.
To other news now, counterfeit and pirated goods confiscated by law enforcement and regulatory member bodies of the National Committee on Intellectual Property Rights were destroyed in a ceremony held at the Philippine National Police National Headquarters in Camp Crame. The Interagency Intellectual Property Task Force said it has seized 6.7 billion pesos worth of fake and pirated goods in the first 5 months of the year. From January to May this year, the NCIPR's seizure stood at more than 80% of its total seizure in 2017. That amounted to 8.2 billion pesos. Most of the fake goods were cigarettes and cigarette paraphernalia, such as packing machines, raw materials, filters, and stamps. Handbags and wallets worth 151 million pesos, meanwhile, were also seized from January to May, as well as 103 million pesos worth of optical discs that were also confiscated by the Optical Media Board. The NCIPR was created in 2008 as an interagency task group to formulate and carry out plans and policies.
June is Philippine Heritage Month in Alberta, Canada, recognizing the contributions of Filipino Canadians in the province. Here's more.
The Canadian province of Alberta has declared every June Philippine Heritage Month. The proclamation recognizes the contribution of Philippine Canadians to the social, economic, and cultural mosaic of Alberta. Bert Asuke, the Consul General in Calgary, says this recognition is the result of 2 years of efforts by Philippine community leaders. Asuke told an Edmonton audience it presents a challenge to the Philippine community.
We have to find ways by which we can show to the Albertans and to entire Canada that the Filipino Canadians is part of the life and the development and the progress of this country. So that's also a message that we can send back to our motherland, the Philippines, to show that we contribute here as to the adopted country as well as to the country where we all came from, where all Filipino Canadians came from. So this is a rallying call for all Filipinos.
Asuki says he wants next year's celebration to be bigger and better.
So Filipino Canadians in Alberta, we all face a challenge of how to make next year's Philippine Heritage Month a meaningful and first historic celebration. So we rely on the media, like Eagle Broadcasting, to see how we can galvanize all the Filipinos to make a 1 month activity that will really showcase the contribution of the Filipino Canadians to the life of Alberta and to the economy itself.
Asuki was in Edmonton to attend a post-anniversary celebration of the 120th year of Philippine independence. In Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, Thomas I. Likeness, Eagle News. I'm 1 with 25.
Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you, Thomas. More news will be coming your way when Eagle News International returns.
Health is our most important.
Welcome to the garden. A world that recaptures the value of life, creating your moments, kindling your passion, worth reliving over and over. This is your world, your life, your garden.
Landmarks, Linggo, alas 6 hanggang alas 7 ng gabi.
All right, first we have breaking news out of SM Megamall. There is a fire incident happening in the construction site outside SM Megamall. Emergency response team together with the Bureau of Fire Protection are already managing the situation according to authorities. Only a portion of the mall is affected by smoke coming from the site. According to authorities, they're taking all precautionary measures to ensure the safety of everyone in the complex, and we'll be bringing you more updates of this on this developing story as we go along and as we get more information about this fire. All right, President Donald Trump renewed his attacks on Harley-Davidson, threatening to tax the company for offshoring manufacturing and saying the iconic American motorcycle should never be built outside the United States. One day after the Wisconsin-based company said it was planning to shift some manufacturing overseas due to the European Union's tariffs in retaliation for U.S. duties. Trump accused Harley-Davidson of appropriating the trade war as an excuse for the move. Take a listen.
On trade, there are some people who are saying that your tariff threats threaten to plunge the economy into a recession. Harley-Davidson announced that it's moving to plant to Thailand.
Harley-Davidson, Joe, was going to do that. They announced it earlier this year. So Harley-Davidson is using that as an excuse. And I don't like that because I've been very good to Harley-Davidson, and they used it as an excuse. And I think the people that ride Harleys are not happy with Harley-Davidson, and I wouldn't be either. But mostly companies are coming back to our country. I was the one that explained to Harley about 100% tax in India, where they had a tariff of 100%, and I got it down to a much lower number. I think it's 50%, which is far too much, but they were paying 100% tariff. Now, Prime Minister Modi brought it way down, but it's still way too high. No, I will say this, John. Other countries are negotiating. And without tariffs, you could never do that. And if they don't want to negotiate, then we'll do the tariffs. And just remember, we're the bank. We're the bank that everybody wants to steal from and plunder. And it can't be that way anymore. What I would like to do, and what I offered at the G7, you remember, I said, let's drop all tariffs and all barriers. Is everybody okay with that? And nobody said yes. I said, wait a minute, folks, you're complaining. No tariffs and no barriers. You're on your own. Let's do it. And it was like they couldn't leave the room fast enough. The bottom line is countries are coming back now to negotiate, including European Union wants to negotiate. Because if they don't, we're going to tax their cars. They send Mercedes in. They send BMWs in. They pay almost no tax. When we send cars to the European Union, they charge us a tremendous tax. 5 times greater than what we charge them. But more importantly, they don't want our cars. They have a barrier. We don't want your cars. But if you do get it in, you're going to pay a tax.
EU officials, meanwhile, suggested President Trump had only himself to blame for the falling out with a company he had previously hailed as a true American icon. EU Trade Commissioner Cecilia Malmstrom says the decision of Harley-Davidson to shift some manufacturing overseas is a natural consequence of a protectionist U.S. trade policy.
First of all, because there has to be consequences if you do not respect international global rules, which are enshrined in WTO and where the EU and the US have developed these rules together. And also, yes, of course, the consequences are that the American companies and the American business and American consumers, who we don't want to punish, but that is the unfortunate consequence, that they will react and that they will push pressure on the American administration to say, hey, hold on a minute, this is not good for the American economy. And that's what's happening.
All right, the patriarch of South Korean flag carrier Korean Air, Cho Yang-ho, apologized as he was grilled by prosecutors over alleged tax evasion and other crimes. Our ABC correspondent from South Korea, Arvi Arviero, reports from Seoul.
The Seoul Southern District Prosecutor's Office is questioning the Hanjin Group and Korean Airlines Corporation Chairman Cho Yang-ho on Thursday, June 28, over allegations of tax evasion and embezzlement. The Seoul Southern District Prosecutor's Office is questioning the Hanjin Group and Korean Airlines Corporation Chairman Cho Yang-ho on Thursday, June 28, over allegations of tax evasion and embezzlement. Cho Yang-ho is the 4th member of the family that was summoned for questioning, along with his daughters, Cho Yun-ah and Cho Yun-min, and his wife Lim Hyung-hee, who are accused of multiple allegations of physical and verbal abuse against its workers, and also reportedly involved in the unlawful recruitment of Filipino workers to work in their family home as domestic workers. Yonhap News reported earlier that prosecutors are investigating Chairman Cho on suspected tax evasion after the tax agency questioned whether Chairman Cho paid tax on overseas assets inherited from his father, which is over 50 billion won. They also believed that he has embezzled over 20 billion won through illegal inter-affiliate deals. The Seoul Southern District Prosecutor's Office is also tracking suspicious money flows within the accounts of the Cho family members and its associates. The office is also accusing the chairman of causing losses to the business empire by letting members of his family earn easy money from dealings with Hanjin affiliates. The analyst of Merit Securities, Choi Chi-yoon, said, due to the uncertainty concerning the founding family, Korean Air shares are undervalued, where shares in Korean Airlines fell as much as 1.1% in last month's trade. This is RV Abiero, your ABC correspondent from South Korea, and I am 1 with 25.
The Philippine government is reaching out to overseas Filipino workers in Barcelona, Spain. A Philippine consulate has recently been inaugurated there. Teresito Diaz reports.
Consulate in Barcelona, Spain is once again open to serve the Filipino community. Attorney Chona Tenorio is the first Filipina named honorary consul in Barcelona.
With thousands of Filipinos working and living in and around this Catalan city, the reopening of consulate to cater for their needs was warmly welcomed. On day one, many came to process the renewal of their passports and their dual citizenship.
Sobrang saya po na ngayon may consul na po dito sa Barcelona. At mas magiging madali at mabilis na po para sa amin. Hindi na po mahirapan para sa mga applications o ano po yung mga dapat dokumentong dapat ayusin.
The Philippine Ambassador to Spain, His Excellency Felipe Jalullier, sworn into office last May. Attorney Chona Tenorio is the new honorary consul. Attorney Tenorio, a Filipino representative and a proud member of Latin American Hispanic Institute of International Law, an international law organization which is consultative organ of the United Nations, is more than happy to be of service to the Filipino community.
I studied law because I saw what was happening before with the Filipino community. Because since they cannot speak Spanish and sometimes they just, keep silent even if they are being humiliated, no? They don't fight for their rights. And then I said, what will happen? There must be somebody to defend them, And now as a consul, I think I can dedicate all my life serving my the Filipino community because, I did a lot for my family and also for myself, and then I said it's time to do something for the community. I just want to make my existence meaningful for them. As the honorary consul, my plans is, first of all, is to unite the Filipino community. And then I in my first meeting with the Philcom leaders, I said, I am an honorary consul and this is honorary consulate. This is not mine, but it is all ours. And then I need the cooperation of all the Philcom leaders because if I'm alone, I can't do anything. Filipino professionals are very intelligent, they are very patient, and also, they are good workers, that's why. And that is my objective. To have a full integration of the Filipino community with the host country. I will give legal conferences once a month. I will also invite resource persons from the European Union and also from the agencies, government here in Spain, from the Social Security, so that the Filipinos will be enlightened. Because if they know their rights, and it will open their mind, and they will find also a new option, or possibility so that they can practice their profession.
From Barcelona, Spain, I'm 36 years and I'm one with 25.
We'll be back with more news when Eagle News International returns. Since 1941, the Blood Bank of Hawaii has been providing life-saving products throughout the Aloha State. At present, the nonprofit supports up to 18 civilian hospitals and numerous blood donation drives in partnership with community groups, large or small. Our EBC Hawaii correspondent Alfredo Sanas visited one such event and has this report.
The Blood Bank of Hawaii recently co-sponsored a donation drive with the Iglesia Ni Cristo or Church of Christ in Wahiawa, Central Oahu, as it continues to encourage community members to give blood, especially during the so-called summer doldrums.
Line up, they can get deferred, right? They can be sick, they can have high blood pressure or not enough iron.
Right.
There's all these percentages that they want to, but they can't. So that alone is configured into the total statistics, right, of the overall process. And you can see a lot of faith-based people, they understand.
Correct.
Because, you know, as Jesus gave his blood, you know, so forth, you could give your blood, which is, you can't associate that with the dollar amount.
Right.
When you give your time and you give your blood, that's from your own heart, your own conscience, right, and your own soul.
The statewide nonprofit acknowledges the ongoing challenge that not everyone is able to donate for various reasons. To counter any discouragement, Blood Bank of Hawaii believes that educating the public on this act of charity is always critical, especially when the entire U.S. continues to experience a shortage of blood products.
That gives us the ability to advertise. We were on the news. One of the things they covered was the myths.
Yeah.
You know, I can't donate because I'm too old.
Right,
I can't donate because I have diabetes.
Education, yeah.
Right? I can't donate because I had tattoos.
Right.
That kind of stuff, right? When we do have the means to advertise, we'll advertise. When we do have the means to go on a radio show, tomorrow you'll hear her on the radio show often, yeah? But it's not a rocket scientist type of work.
Right.
You don't need a high degree of intelligence.
And what about those who still think they don't need to get involved in donating blood? For more on the Blood Bank of Hawaii, visit bbh.org. Reporting from Honolulu, Hawaii, I'm Alfred Asenas for Eagle News. I'm Juan with 25.
All right, and here's Ben Bernaldez for the latest in sports.
Holders
Open, Phil Dalhouser and his partner Nick Lucena are men's semi-finalists. The women's semi-finalists are number 1 Sarah Hughes and Summer Ross. Tenny Sumagi reports.
We're at Pier 2526 in the heart of Lower Manhattan, New York for the AVP New York Open.
Beach volleyball comes to the Big Apple. The New York Open, the second stop of the Association of Volleyball Professionals Tour, featuring several elite pros on the circuit. Fans enjoyed this free public event with scenic views of New York City's Lower Manhattan and New Jersey across the Hudson River.
Number 1 seed and 2016 champions Phil Dalhouser and Nick Lucena claimed this year's men's title, defeating defending champions Jake Gibb and Taylor Crabb 21-16, 21-17. On the women's draw, Summer Ross and partner Sarah Hughes beat 5th-seeded Nicole Brana and Brandy Wilkerson 21-14, 21-19. All winners receive $200,000 in prize money. The AVP Tour is the U.S. premier beach volleyball organization, which also tours in Austin, Seattle, San Francisco, Chicago, the famous Southern California beaches of Manhattan and Redondo, and Hawaii. Next stop for the players will be the Seattle Open from June 21st to 24th.
Reporting from Lower Manhattan in New York, I'm Tenny Samagi, 1 with 25.
Joe Jackson, the father of Michael Jackson, who created the Jackson 5 music family with Iron Whale, died on Wednesday, U.S. time, according to family members. He was 89. LaToya Jackson, one of his 11 children and also a pop singer, mourned her father and said she was extremely appreciative of him. I will always love you. You gave us strength. You made us one of the most famous families in the world, she wrote on Twitter as she posted a segment on Oprah Winfrey's television network in which she's having lunch with her father. Entertainment sites TMZ and ET said Jackson died Wednesday morning in Los Angeles after a battle with cancer. Jackson himself hinted at his impending death in a tweet 2 days ago. He said, "I've seen more sunsets than I have left to see. The sun rises when the time comes, and whether you like it or not, the sun sets when the time comes," he wrote. A strict disciplinarian, father of 11 children, the steel worker in Gary, Indiana, turned into one of music history's most unlikely but most successful managers as he created the Jackson 5 from his family. His most famous child, King of Pop Michael Jackson, would later break down in tears, even as an adult, when recalling his father beating him with his belt and, while publicly forgiving him, wrote him out of his will.
Michael Jackson's legacy as a pop culture and artistic icon is showcased at a new exhibition at London's National Portrait Gallery. By morbid coincidence, Michael Jackson on the Wall opens to the public on Thursday, 28th June, the day after news was announced that the star's father, Joe Jackson, had died. The exhibition features paintings, photographs, and sculptures from artists such as pop art pioneer Andy Warhol, German sculptor Asa Gensken, and U.S. photographer David LaChapelle. The man with the best-selling album in history, Thriller, continues to shape modern culture through his body of work. Each of the exhibition's 14 rooms explores a facet of the singer's life, which ended in June 2009. Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Tumblr. Also check out our boards and Pinterest and pictures on Instagram. I'm Sam Cepeda. Thanks for joining us.
I'm Alma Angeles, and
we're one with 25.